Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. You know, new information, and we covered this last night, but even since last night, there's new information coming out in these released documents in regards to the Idaho 4 case and Brian Kohberger. Prosecutors say they have evidence that a man charged in the stabbing deaths of 4 University of Idaho students bought a knife and a knife sheath online in the months before the killings. This is according to newly released court documents. The prosecutors in the Brian Kohberger trial filed a motion asking a judge to allow them to present his Amazon shopping activity as evidence during the trial. They also sought permission to show that a housemate of the victim saw a man with bushy eyebrows wearing a ski mask in the house in the early hours of November 13th, 2022, when the killings took place. In a court filing, prosecutors said they would present a photograph of Kohberger taken from his phone hours after the killings and let the jury decide whether he has bushy eyebrows. Kohberger is charged with 4 counts of murder in the deaths of Ethan Chapin, Zana Knodel, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Goncalves. The students were killed in the early morning at a rental near the school's campus in Moscow, Idaho. A judge previously entered a not guilty plea in Kohberger's behalf. Kohberger's trial is scheduled to begin August 11th and is expected to last more than 3 months. Prosecutors have said they will seek the death penalty if he is convicted. Prosecutors also have said they've matched touch DNA found on a knife sheath near the bodies of one of the victims. A defense attorney pushed to have the DNA evidence thrown out, but Judge Stephen Hippler denied the request for that motion last month. Court documents filed Monday said the state obtained a search warrant for Kohberger's Amazon activity pertaining to knives and accessories, his payment methods, and details of items he added and removed from his cart. Prosecutors said that the search warrant was narrowly tailored to March 20th to March 30th, 2022, the time they said Kohberger was known to have bought a K-bar knife with sheath and sharpener from Amazon, and between November 1st and December 6th that year, dates falling weeks before and after the killings. So this is pretty new evidence, but pretty powerful evidence. Evidence that, again, is circumstantial, but not evidence that's not powerful. Very extremely powerful evidence. And there were rumors of this earlier, that this evidence existed. Now, these rumors have been confirmed. So, folks, hold on to your hats, hold on to your seats, hold on to your cup of coffee, hold on to your loved ones. You're about to enter true crime from a police perspective. You're about to enter the off-the-cuff zone, the police off-the-cuff zone.
There has to be some common sense.
They were the ones who called 911 to get him help, and now they're calling for change.
And now, a word from our sponsor. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds on everything from NBA and college basketball to the NHL and UFC, BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every three-pointer to hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. Mando whole body deodorant. The thing I like most about Mando body deodorant is that it lasts all day and leaves me feeling clean and fresh. It doesn't quit even after the harshest heat and humidity. The fresh feeling keeps me dry and confident, No need to worry about unsightly sweat stains. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. As a special offer for listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% of your starter pack. Use code POLICE, POLICE in capital letters at shopmando.com. That's shopmando.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. So, folks, this case is just, I can't imagine the amount of changes and the amount of new information that'll come as we get closer and closer to the August date of this trial. Just absolutely unbelievable. And I would bet that, and I'm not going to bet online, but I would bet that the prosecution has even more evidence than they have released. So this case that was from yesterday, the creepy Brian Koberger selfie, which you see right here, it's up on the screen. So there is, I would bet that there is much more evidence that the prosecution will come forward with. And as the case gets closer and closer, we will expect to see some of that evidence. This here, I'm going to put up on the screen, is from Court TV.
Student murders case against Brian Koberger. Court filings are revealing potential new evidence ahead of the defendant's trial. It's currently scheduled for August. One of those filings includes the state obtaining a search warrant for Koberger's Amazon click history. The state claims that they have evidence showing that the months before the killings, Koberger purchased a K-bar knife, which is the same style as the alleged murder weapon. Purchased it with a sheath and a sharpener, all purchased from Amazon. Now, the defense has asked the judge to exclude any Amazon evidence, arguing that the click activity was from a family account. Well, as we know, the DNA on the knife has been a very hot topic at previous hearings.
And the court's question, good question, what does that mean? Could it mean there's more than one person? The answer to that is, or it could mean it's not Brian because his car's got nothing in it and there were only 13 minutes to do this. The magistrate didn't get to know that.
In fact, his DNA is still on the knife sheath, though. That's the problem, counsel.
Wow, wow, wow. When the judge says that, she's going on about her, there's no evidence this, there's no evidence that, and boom, he hits her with a left hook. Yeah, except the problem is his DNA is on the knife sheath that is left in the bed with one of the victims. So it's like unbelievable.
It could mean it's not Brian because his car's got nothing in it and there were only 13 minutes to do this. The magistrate didn't get to know that.
In fact, his DNA is still on the knife sheath, though. That's the problem, counsel, for probable cause purposes.
The state also plans to use this selfie of Brian Koberger. Look at this. Prosecutors say that he took it just hours after the fatal stabbings occurred. And you can see he's given a thumbs up in the photo for whatever reason, wearing a dress shirt all buttoned up, all the way, his collar buttoned up, and he has what appears to be wireless earbuds in his ears. First, it kind of looks like hair when you see it, but those are earbuds. We took a closer look. And there's a hearing coming up on April 9th to address all of these issues that are coming up. And we're talking about it now. We're not waiting till April 9th. Let me bring in our guest. I'm so happy to have on the program criminology expert, professor and author, Dr. Debbie Goodman, and criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor, Joe Tamburino. Good morning to you both. Let's start with the Koberger selfie. It seems to be kind of breaking the internet. So many people examining every little thing that's in that picture. Dr. Debbie, we're dying to hear your thoughts, please.
Thank you. Good morning. My thoughts, Julie, slam dunk, and here's why. If we were to open any college or university textbook on serial and mass murderers, this is absolutely one of these checkpoints and check marks of what these individuals do. I actually have the exact quote, Julie. I remember seeing an interview days before Ted Bundy was executed, and a journalist asked him, "Why did you take photos of victims in the crime scene?" And here's his exact quote: "When you work hard to do something right, you don't want to forget it." So I feel that this photo is so eerie and chilling, yet very indicative of this individual wanting to remember what he did. And I think it's absolutely a nod to his guilt. We see him in what appears to be a bathroom, a shower, nicely dressed, this thumbs up, a smirk, a smug. And there's, again, this sense of pride and pleasure that he exudes. And Julie, you had said at the onset, is some of this a coincidence? I can assure you, as a criminologist, there is absolutely zero coincidence when it comes to murder. This is very significant, very substantial.
Dr. Debbie Gray.
That was, I think Dr. Debbie hit it on the head there. What Brian Kohberger did here in this selfie is akin to a serial killer taking a souvenir or a trophy from the crime scene. And this little thumbs up he's giving himself is akin to a trophy and or a souvenir, because he could look back at that selfie and relive this case, relive the murder of these 4 students in his sick, twisted way. Again, if Kohberger is guilty and he's innocent till proven guilty. But right here, that would be what's called incorrectly by Dr. Debbie a souvenir and or a trophy. And again, reliving that event over and over and over. Another thing that we found out that is rather recent is that not only did Kohberger purchase the knife 8 months prior to these crimes, but he also purchased a replacement knife and a replacement sheath, because the murder weapon, it is believed right now, we are told, has never been recovered. So when caught, if caught, he could always produce these and says, look, here's my K-bar knife, here's my sheath. Except the plans went awry when they found his touch DNA on the button of this sheath. So that's where his plans went off the rails. So I don't think he could present that as evidence, because, again, his DNA was found on the button of the knife sheath. This is NBC News. Steve Goncalves has been making his rounds sort of on the news stations. Maybe this is also how he deals with the death of his daughter, Kaylee Goncalves. I have nothing but sympathy for this man, and he's really a great man, in my opinion.
Taken hours after your daughter and her housemates were murdered.
It was a trophy. He made himself a trophy. He felt like at that point he had just returned from the crime scene. There was no one there. And he believed, very confident, that's what the thumbs up. He's going to look back at that, remember what he got away with. And, it's a challenge to Idaho to let everybody know that, he thought he could kill people in our state, get away with it. He was far smarter than everyone else around him. And, he studied it. He's trying to be a PhD in it. So I think it was a challenge to Idaho. And I think Idaho will definitely step up. And he's going to regret that photo.
Steve, I want to also ask you about one of the requests the defense is making to the judge, asking that they do not allow spectators to wear T-shirts with pictures of the victims on them or anything like words in the memory of. How does that make you feel?
It's petty. I don't worry about it, though. My daughter's justice and getting this conviction is much more important than wearing a shirt. I've never worn a shirt in court. They'll never be able to ever show that I ever did. So, when you got somebody facing, death row, you probably should focus more on, the case and the evidence rather than who's going to be in there witnessing it.
The defense has also claimed that they're going to present alternate perpetrators. Do you believe there is anyone else involved in the murder of your daughter and her housemates?
No, not at all. There's surveillance all around there. You're going to clearly see who was coming into the place and exactly when they were leaving and what that vehicle looked like when it took that corner. This case is solid. It's super solid. And, we look forward to it.
So many people, when I discuss this case, when I cover this case, there's many people that believe that Bryan Kohberger is innocent. And they're not convinced that this evidence is powerful enough to convict him. Let's face it, this new evidence of him purchasing the K-bar knife and the sheath on Amazon 8 months before the murder, that is what we call circumstantial evidence. Because he purchased that and because his knife sheath was found on the scene with his DNA on it, let's leave that to the side. But because he purchased the K-bar knife and the knife sheath, that is what we would call circumstantial evidence for which inferences are drawn. And attorneys always point to that as that's and they try to dismiss it. But every attorney knows, whether a prosecutor or a defense attorney, that circumstantial evidence is extremely, extremely powerful evidence. Evidence that piled up high can get a conviction. That type of evidence. Very strong evidence. So the evidence of Bryan Kohberger buying this knife on Amazon, again, circumstantial. And then the evidence of him purchasing a replacement K-bar knife and a replacement sheath, also circumstantial. So we can't just take that and say, oh, this is just coincidental that he bought this knife. But what's not coincidental is that the sheath that was left behind the scene had touched DNA. Coming back to Bryan Kohberger, a statistical match on the button that locked that handle of the knife into that sheath. That, they may say that's also circumstantial, but it's powerful, also physical evidence. And then all the new, it's not even new, the evidence that perhaps we were unaware of Bryan Kohberger being at the scene, or the car that he was driving, which coincidentally he had a white Elantra, and the car seen all over the video cameras, and his car seen in that area based on his cell phone tracking was a white Elantra. So all of those things, we may say circumstantial, but are you getting the point that all of this circumstantial evidence starts to pile up when he goes home to Pennsylvania? How he's washing his car and throwing out garbage with gloves on at 4 o'clock in the morning and putting his garbage in his neighbor's garbage pail. Again, circumstantial, right? And there's a lot of talk about, when they talk about the time frame, how quickly these murders were committed. Could he have done that? Did he have the experience? He was certainly not a soldier or an assassin. How did he kill these young people so quickly? How did he get in and out so fast? How did he get undressed and throw his clothes perhaps in a hefty bag or double bagged and get no blood inside the car? Is that even possible? Many people ask that. How was that possible? How did he get rid? If we can, again, if this is, let's say, how did the killer, let's not say it was Brian Koberger, how did the killer get rid of the murder weapon? How did the killer get rid of his bloody clothing? These are all questions. These are all areas that the defense can create doubt, because we know the prosecution has to get a conviction beyond a reasonable doubt. Will the defense be able to raise reasonable doubt and get even one juror to vote not guilty? That remains to be seen. Here is Banfield on News Nation.
I want to start here, though. If you were with us last night, your head might still be spinning from all the new and stunning details that came out late in the day in the Idaho student murders. And I know I'm right there with you. It's just kind of mind-blowing what we're learning, because there's been a gag order for 2.5 years. So we rushed that breaking news on the air last night, and we picked it apart in real time.
You know, some people have asked me, why is all this information coming out right now? There's the answer she just gave, because there was a gag order for 2.5 years. And now some of this evidence is being released just now. And people are saying, wow, won't that prejudice the jury? Well, the hearings, we all know what was going on in the hearings. Can't that prejudice the jury? So all of these things, they'll be able to find 12 jurors that can reach a fair and impartial verdict. And that'll be the job of the defense and the prosecution in the process of picking jurors to pick people who can be fair.
And then when we went off the air, we kept reading through the hundreds of pages, and we found even more. Some of it comes close to smoking gun territory, where Brian Koberger is concerned, but even now, the defense has an answer for almost everything. And I stress the word almost. We now know a lot about Koberger's so-called click history at Amazon. Yesterday, I told you that he bought a K-bar knife, identical to the murder weapon, 8 months before the university students were murdered. He also bought a K-bar knife sheath, identical to the one that was left behind at the crime scene. And for good measure, he bought a knife sharpener, according to the prosecutor's list of Amazon purchases. But now we know he was looking to buy something else, a so-called replacement K-bar knife and sheath. And this was after the murders happened. Remember, the killer made that critical mistake and left the knife sheath next to the bodies of Kaylee Goncalves and Maddie Mogan. The murder weapon has never been found, so it stands to reason that the killer might need a replacement for both the knife and the sheath, if anyone ever came around asking. And of course, someone came around asking Brian Koberger. By the way, we also got to see the selfie that Brian Koberger himself snapped in what appears to be his bathroom, a bathroom. But we know this, that picture with the shower behind him was taken just 6 hours after the murders, and an hour and a half before 911 was even called. He is smiling. He's giving a thumbs up about something, seemingly does not have a care in the world, and looks pretty proud of, again, something. This was taken after tracking shows that Koberger's cell phone visited the King Road area twice just that morning.
You know, again, that selfie, that picture says so much more than just a picture with a thumbs up, you know. And as we discussed earlier in the show, what that picture is something called a trophy, gloating in what he has just done, a souvenir, so that he could look back upon that picture in the days and months and years later and relive in a perverted way the murder of these 4 young people, these 4 young students. And it's very common that serial killers do that. In fact, they admire their work or they take something from the crime scene. This was akin in taking something from the crime scene. And that's why I think, and many other people think, that this is so important. And this can be very powerful evidence to be used in the trial. And I am sure that the defense will ask to have this suppressed. They don't want this photo. The other reason they don't want this photo is because this photo proves one thing to the jury. Look at his eyebrows. Are those eyebrows in fact bushy? The way Dylan Mortensen had testified to. The man with the mask on had bushy eyebrows. Well, you look at that. You tell me, are those eyebrows bushy? You look at that selfie and you tell me, you dare to say that they're not bushy. But that will be left to the jury. So no one has to imagine them being bushy eyebrows. They can take a look at the selfie and decide for themselves.
Traveling from his student apartment across the state line in Washington. And with all of this new information, we have a new theory about why he might have felt compelled to go back to the murder scene in the morning, if indeed he's the murderer. I'm joined again by News Nation's senior national correspondent, Brian Enton, who's been going through these documents. Boy, we didn't sleep much last night.
So what Ashley Banfield is referring to, the reason in his mind, we had all thought that he had gone back to the crime scene, if in fact it is Kohberger, to sort of just relive it again and to look and see what was going on, except he may have gone back to the crime scene location to check out if he could find the knife sheath that he had left. Because he may have thought, well, maybe it fell off my belt before I got in my car and I was changing my clothes. So let me at least go back and check and see if I can find it. And there's no doubt he went back to the crime scene at that time. So it perhaps wasn't to relive the thrill of what he had just done, if in fact he had just murdered these 4 young people, but it was to find the knife sheath, which we know he didn't find.
Through these documents. We're on FaceTime, just finding one thing after another. So let's talk about first this replacement knife and sheath. That I actually missed the first time around. When I saw that he bought the knife and the sheath and the sharpener 8 months before the murders, it was a eureka moment. But then came in the footnotes, this replacement knife and sheath. So walk me through your thoughts about that.
Yeah, I mean, this was kind of buried. It was like hundreds of pages of documents. And you mentioned that we were going through them till like 1 a.m. together. And I was also so struck by the fact that he bought the knife and the sheath, according to prosecutors, that I missed this one little teeny line in one of the state documents until I found it in the middle of the night, which is really, really interesting. They say that after the murders, so he bought the knife and the sheath before the murders, they say, but after the murders, they went through his click history on his Amazon account and that he was searching for a knife and sheath, which is very, very interesting when you think about why, perhaps. Did he suddenly realize that, he realized that he left the knife at the scene and wanted to have a knife in case police came knocking on the door and said, "Where's the knife?" So that's one possible reason.
Left the sheath
really an interesting piece of information,
right? Like left the sheath at the scene and then disposed of the murder weapon somewhere. It's never been found. We presume that if he's the killer, he took an hour to get back home, what would have been a 10-minute drive. So maybe circled somewhere far and wide and disposed of that knife. And then here's the other thing: don't know when or if he knew, oh dear God, I don't have the sheath. So let's talk about that next morning, because at like 9 a.m, the cops don't know yet. The roommates don't know yet. 911 hasn't been called yet for hours. His Elantra is driving by the house again.
So, again, Kohberger, if it is him or the killer, whoever the killer may be, planned this murder to every detail, except mistakes can always happen. And in this case, the big mistake was leaving the knife sheath in the crime scene. So the person, and if it was Kohberger, he seems to be trying to cover his tracks by ordering another knife sheath and another knife. So, folks, that's our show for today. Hit the like button, give us a thumbs up, share it with your friends and your family. I'm Bill Cannon from Police Off the Cuff. Have a great day, everyone, and God bless.
One episode just ain't enough.